Hi, this is Sergeant Beast Larson. Part 2, use of force report writing. Now this is going to gear a little bit more for correction officers. Part 1, I kind of talked a little bit about police and corrections both and my first day as a correction officer. Now we're going to talk about another thing that happens all the time, and this is correction. Isolation unit, SEG units. You have your little door, your little feed slots, a little flap that comes down, whatever you call it. You pull it down, you put your food in, you put it back up, you lock it. Where I worked in Georgia, we called it the flap. So I'm just going to refer to it always as the flap. Now I'm going to talk about this. There's some other videos out there, but I'm going to talk about how I've had some use of force through the flap and how I wrote it and explained it. Here's an example. During lockdown in Tier 2, which is a behavior unit, it's a lockdown unit. This particular building had upstairs, had 2-man cells, downstairs had 1-man cell. And it kind of tends to be, because of the ground level, the guys that control the TV remotes are on the bottom floor. Well, there was 3 of us in the building. Now I was a sergeant. I carried a big can of spray, big 7% can, and I carried it right here on my waist. See how my belt is? Carried it right here, right where my elbow is, right at that point. Now, when I worked, I didn't have a pin in the can. I always took the pin out of the can. And this is why. There wasn't a written policy that says that the pin has to be in the can. I checked. Couldn't find anything on there. So I wanted to make sure I wasn't violating policy. So me and the 2 officers were going through, we're locking this down. It was in H2, for those of you familiar with Hays State Prison. And we have to get the remotes, and we had to turn the TVs off that night by the order of the unit manager. And there have been some things happening, some behavior issues, and they were told on the day shift, I was working nights, 6 p.m. to 6 a.m., that when we came down for lockdown time, even though they already locked down in that unit, in the isolation unit, means TV's off, stuff like that's put away. Orderlies have to go into the cell and they're done for the night. Everybody's put in, and we go by and, make sure all the flaps are secure and put padlocks on them. Well, a couple flaps are open, and they were allowed to be during the daytime. Because of that specific unit, there was things that were allowed. So we go and we're locking these up, and the guy's like, I got the remote, I don't have to shut mine. I said, yes, you do. No, I don't. Yes, unit manager so-and-so said you do. He told me today, just like yesterday, we have to go around, shut the flaps, lock everything, and I collect the remotes, collect all 3 remotes. Well, I got the other 2 and everybody else was fine. I go by to get his, and I'm standing about 3-4 feet. I was never close enough that they could reach and grab me and pull me, or reach to hit me. I was just far enough so that if they did try to swing, it was like this. They were just missing me. I knew that distance to reach. And I said, you need to give it to me. He started that, and I said, okay. I said, the consequences are everybody's going to have loss of privileges, because I'm not going to call and wake him up at 11 o'clock at night. I said, but I'm going to get my lieutenant, and we're going to take this action and that action. And he said, what you going to do? And I explained to him what we were going to do, which would be using force at that point. Because he's failing to comply and get his arm in. He had his arm out, dangling out the flap like this and everything. And I'm standing there talking, and he's got his arm out, and then he reached, just had surgery on his arm. I can't use this one yet. So he's got his arm out dangling, talking to me, remote's inside on the other hand, and then he goes like this, and he tries to punch me. Now remember what I said about my can of mace right here? You know how you stand 4 to 6 feet, your reactionary gap, you got your body like this? Well, when the flap was open, the mace is on this side, taser on my left side. I stood this way. So I'm standing just like this, and I make sure that my mace canister is facing the direction like it would be facing towards the camera right here. Imagine that's the flap. So I'm standing right here. As soon as that arm comes out to hit me, my elbow went like this, and he was drinking it. Shot right down his throat. So we call in, have use of force, so I got to go do the report. And some people got upset about this. And I'd done this, more than this many times. We're on using 2 hands to count this technique. I was very skilled at doing this. And the track is, the flap is tricky. You know, you can't just, oh, I don't like what you're saying, and grab and slam it. You don't grab and slam the flap on anybody. You don't do that. Unless they got a weapon or something, they're attacking you, then that's different. But we're not talking about that. So I need to go write this report. So I write on, I'm just going to always use the same date and time, for example. You know, I fill the top out. In the narrative, I say on January 1, 2020 at 2300 hours at Hays State Prison, dorm H2. So I've got date, time, exactly where I'm at, the dorm in the H2, cell number 106, I'll say. I, Sergeant Larson, and we didn't put our first name on there. We were conducting lockdown in the isolation unit. We were instructed by unit manager so-and-so, all flaps had to be shut, locked with a padlock that we had, all the remotes collected, placed on the table. So I wrote down the specific instructions we had on the use of force report. Why? So that they know when, what time, exactly where, exactly who sent us there, what was our reason to be there, lockdown, to shut and secure everything and collect remotes according to unit manager so-and-so. That's how I started that use of force report off. Not on above date and time. We was locking down, inmate swung at me, I sprayed him. I didn't write that. I explain all this stuff. Then I explain, I was instructing inmate so-and-so, GDC number so-and-so in cell 106, H2 106. Unit manager said, all the remotes get collected. I instructed him 3 times to give me the remote. I then explained that I would contact Lieutenant so-and-so. The next steps would be preparing for use of force to go in and get his arm out of that flap. So in explaining this, inmate, while giving his instruction, inmate so-and-so had his right arm hanging out of the flap, reached to try to punch me in the stomach. As he tried to punch in the stomach, at the same time, I deployed a 1-second burst from my OC spray. And they said, how did you have time to draw it out and spray it? I said, I didn't. I said, but I sprayed him. When he was swinging, I was spraying at the same time. And they're watching the camera, the dorm cameras, and it's not very clear. Well, you didn't have a body camera on. I said, it happened quick. I said, but I got it turned on. And you'll hear me on the camera telling, other officers, hey, so-and-so, so-and-so, I sprayed mace. We need to get out. We need to get the doors open and get some ventilation going. You're going to hear me when I got the camera on, and you hear me say this and then take a breath and hold the breath. I just didn't get the camera on at the time that I sprayed. How did you do that? I said, I went like this with my elbow and I sprayed him. Well, legally, now remember the Miranda warning, when they was questioning me, they didn't read me my rights when they questioned this, which was their mistake. They want to question me and treat me like I'm committing a crime. They should have read Miranda rights. But that's the other video. I explained it. I knew exactly that within the tier of our use of force continuum, the OC spray was the appropriate level of force. I didn't climb through the flap and beat him up. I didn't put my key in a door, open a door, and go in there. Then that would have been wrong. I had that chance to spray it. I used my elbow, I sprayed him, that was it. So I explained it that way. Once I sprayed, we evacuated, we opened the doors to help ventilate for the other inmates. And I didn't say that I noticed the inmate did close his flap prior to us exiting the building, which means he's trapping, not me. He trapped all that OC spray and air in his cell. Now he did that to try and minimize to everybody else, because now he realized, hey, these other guys are going to get me back, because now they're afraid to hold dorm lose privilege, but they're all going to smell this because of what he did. So Lieutenant comes down and everything, and I also explained, once Lieutenant was there, we had the front and the back doors propped open. Everybody inside was secure. The control booth officer had visual the whole time that nobody was coming in and out of the cell or the building. We began our ventilation. Supervisor came. We had medical come down. The inmate did immediately cuff up. He was taken outside the building, seen by medical, cleared by medical, He was put into a different empty cell until his could be ventilated properly. So there's a time period. And I listed he was in his cell beginning this time and this time until, without mask, we determined that his cell was safe for him to return and not be affected anymore. That's how you write and you explain things. And if they tell you you talk too much, you're just explaining things how you want it wrote, and you're writing it how you want it repeated and testified to in court. You're not talking too much. I wrote use of force reports that I can explain in 10, 15 minutes, but it takes 3 to 4 pages to write. But when I go back in court and I'm reading this 2, 3, 4, 5 years later, I read this and I talk, I can walk a jury through exactly what happened. It paints a beautiful picture like I'm a movie producer. That's your goal in report writing. So just that simple, and I've talked 11 minutes now in this video, just talking about things that happen at the flat. Just them reaching out and punching. And why is this important? One of our sergeants was talking to a behavior problem, a mental health problem. The inmate reached out with a poker, poked him right here in the jugular. Poked him right there. I watched the video of that sergeant walking away, blood squirting all down his shirt and walking away. Bad things happen in the flat. So there's a lot of use of forces that are involving the flat, your feet slot. And it's going to be fights. It's going to be urine and feces squirted out. And then what'd you do? I was so quick with my spray. If they squirted urine, shampoo bottle, urine and feces, did that, pow, my elbow was like this. I wasn't hitting them, just like this quick. My elbow's on there. Good second burst of spray right into that flat. I was just the perfect height. That's a good day to not be 6 foot or 6'1". It's a good day to be 5'9", because your waist is perfect height. And I say that with a smile because I've deployed spray many times. Remember, I'm just going to hold 10 fingers up and we'll call it a day on that. Okay, the next story, the next couple stories will be a little bit more. I'm going to talk in the video number 3 about a 20-inch piece of wood sharpened to a point, and I tased the guy twice. So be ready for that. Video number 4 is a piece of metal taped to an inmate's hand, the inmate on meth and bath salts, and we all spend a few minutes with internal affairs the next day. You'll like that use of force report. It's very detailed and exciting. So stay tuned. Don't forget to hit the like, share, and that little red button. See you soon.